champagne glasses on the hood while the engine running 140 miles an hour. The first V8 ever made by Toyota. A car phone. The embarrassment of Mercedes and BMW. All of that in one automobile. The LS400. The original Lexus LS400 is one of the best all-around automobiles ever produced. A well-maintained early 90s LS400 is still a good, solid car 35 years later. It's impossible to understate the importance of Lexus LS and the impact it had on the American car market. When the LS400 debuted in 1990, it revolutionized the entire luxury car segment for the better. It quite literally changed the world. And in this video, we're going to get into one of the coolest stories in the car world and how the LS400 changed the world and became an icon. Imagine post-war America after World War II. Economy is booming, every industry is increasing production, and Americans are getting rich. And people here in America showing appreciation for everything fancy, including cars. And because how well the economy was doing, everyone was just going for signifiers or wealth. And post-war Japan, obviously after all its destruction during the war, was trying to also catch up and improve their economy, and specifically in the car industry. But back to America, it is late 60s, everything is booming, everyone is having fun, every level of the economy is flourishing. And obviously when the economy is going great, expenses are also going through the roof. So people are splurging on these massive, bulky gas guzzlers from 50s, 60s, and 70s. And then 1973 came around, the oil embargo, and that was for Japan to enter the US and shine like no one before. And because of the oil embargo, the gas became scarce, so the prices went through the roof. As a result, for all Americans, including rich ones, it didn't make sense anymore to drive these massive boat-like gas guzzlers and wait in line for hours and hours and hours just to get 8-9 miles per gallon. So Honda and Toyota were ready to go with their small, fuel-efficient commuter cars. And Americans, specifically boomer Californians, started buying these cars for the sake of better economics, the fuel efficiency, and saving money. And also they found that these cars were not junks, and most importantly, they didn't break. As a result, Japanese cars flooded American roads. But then same Japanese automakers wanted to take on the luxury segment to compete with German rivals. And Toyota was the most focused and intentional one to create a car to truly compete with the king itself. The world's best car, the Mercedes S-Class, specifically the second generation, W126. Toyota took the development of the first luxury sedan very seriously. They dedicated 34 technicians split into 24 teams to take on the development of the very first luxury sedan to truly compete with the best of the best, the S-Class and the 7 Series BMW. And after spending years and years developing this car, spending $1 billion on this project and spending some time in California just to learn the needs of rich people in Golden State, they came out with this car, and it worked. It almost looked like an S-Class, but in a more conservative way that Toyota is known for. It drove almost like an S-Class, but it was quieter than an S-Class. And most importantly, it cost like an E-Class, which is to say twice less than an S-Class or the BMW 7 Series. And who cared they had no heritage? But the car nonetheless was a brilliant creation. A popular magazine, Automobile, test drove this car right before the launch, and they were blown away. The editor, the founder of magazine, David Davis Jr., famously wrote, and I'm going to read this. It's a quote, "All you guys from Munich, Stuttgart, and Coventry, call your offices. I'd say the fox is about to find his way into hen house. Audi may dismiss it as plastic," they wrote when they named the LS400 a 1990 All-Star. Porsche may dismiss it as a pretender, Mercedes-Benz may dismiss it as a plebeian, and they'd all better duck because the LS400 is about to kick some serious tail in the luxury car market. Nothing close to Lexus flagship in price, size, and class will be unaffected by the new standards, the LS400 has said. We all knew the Japanese were serious about their move upmarket into the big money machine, but in all honesty, none of us expected such a stunning first-year effort from the masters of Econobox. No one could have said it better about the LS400 when it was launched than Mr. David Davis Jr. I'm already briefly touched on the exterior of this car, but let's talk about it a little more. Yes, it is very simple, but I think it is very elegant. Like I said, Toyota didn't want to go super extravagant. They just wanted to go after the S-Class, the best luxury sedan at a time. And I think they did such a great job in a very Toyota style too. It is simple, it is clean, yet super elegant, and it was appealing to most people who were into the BMW 7 Series and the Mercedes S-Class. And what's really interesting about this car, nowhere in the body you're gonna find the LS or LS400 badge, because simply Toyota was trying to sell the brand, not the model, because it was their first car. And the success and further existence of Lexus as a brand and the company was heavily dependent on this car, and that's why they didn't badge it as an LS400, because simply they were trying to sell the brand, the Lexus brand, and make people fall in love with Lexus brand. And that is why you're not going to see a single LS badge on this car. Now let's see what's happening inside the original LS400. To be honest, you can immediately see that this car is from 90s. Back then, it was just different times and different mindset, different approach to building cars. Toyota approached this car with one thought in mind. This interior had to be functional and long-lasting. And it is indeed functional and long-lasting. All these buttons all still work. Today, 35 years later, you can see the quality that we're going after. Literally, not a single sticky button. Everything still works as it should. I especially love the audio controls like bass and treble and balance. You just push on them, they pop out, you can switch left or right, do whatever you want to do, and then push back in and it's flushed again against the dashboard. It looks so cool and so clean and kind of elegant. And then if you look in the gauge cluster, the trip odometer is actually digital, but actual odometer is still analog. That doesn't make sense to me why they did it. I'm pretty sure they had a capability to make the odometer digital as well. But here's one interesting thing. All of the lights on the gauge cluster have this 3D effect. It feels like they're super deep in the gauge cluster screen, but in reality, they're actually in the ceiling of the gauge cluster. And that's kind of a cool, interesting, interactive visual effect they created. I'm pretty sure back then this was a cutting edge technology. But for sure, cutting edge technology at the time was the power operated steering column. This was insane because I'm not sure even S-Class offered that at the time. It was more like a Bentley or Rolls-Royce option. But Lexus LS already had that, and that was impressive. And another impressive thing that most S-Class and BMW 7 Series didn't have is the car phone. Check this out. It is Lexus branded old school car phone. Having this back in 1990 was an absolute boss move. This was the ultimate flex, and it is still quirky and nice and funny to see it 35 years later. Obviously, this phone doesn't work. Now it's just a piece of relic like the whole car is. But generally, the interior looks so nice. It is very firm, very well built. You can immediately tell that this car was put together very well. Yes, there's some imperfections, obviously 35 years later, but nothing major. It held up really great. Now let's talk the back seats. Obviously, this is a flagship sedan. As you can tell, I'm not really fitting here very well. I'm 6'3", and this car in the back feels like a Toyota Corolla, to be honest. Modern Toyota Corolla. But honestly, cars, as you might know, have gotten so big nowadays. The newest LS generation is literally a foot or so longer than the original one. So that should tell you something. But anyway, the quality in the back, well, there's not much to talk about. There are individual reading lights, which is a luxury touch for 90s. And then there is armrest, and there is a climate control in the back. And honestly, that's it. Besides the cigarette lighter, obviously everyone's smoking still. Those are the luxury features you get in a flagship sedan from early 90s. Before we see how this car drives, I want to talk the powertrain, because Toyota spent years and years building this brand new engine and so much money. Apparently they spent $400 million to develop this engine. Aluminum block, aluminum heads, dual overhead cams, and most importantly, 8 cylinders. The very first ever V8 from Toyota. The internal code for this engine, how enthusiasts refer to this engine, is 1UZ-FE, an absolute icon of an engine, with its 250 horsepower powered by 4-speed automatic transmission. This car with this engine was faster 0 to 60 than BMW 7 Series, and it cost twice less, and it was more luxurious than 7 Series. How impressive is that? Oh, how smooth this car is. For 35 years old, it is unbelievable. It's mind-blowing, and it feels still so good. It keeps up with the traffic just fine. There's a lot of traffic right here, right now, and you hear obviously stuff going on and cars driving around, and you hear some tire noise. But again, it's a 35-year-old luxury sedan from 90s and late 80s actually. And it feels still very modern when you drive it. I mean, it doesn't feel like a modern luxury sedan for sure, don't get me wrong, but the cabin is quiet and the performance is so smooth. In fact, it is so smooth, they stacked 5 stories of fine champagne glasses on top of the hood in that iconic launch commercial for the LS400, while the car was running 140 plus miles per hour. It's unbelievable. And after that, Nissan and Dodge decided to copycat that commercial and do the same, but it all started right here. And this car specifically is part of the 3K to Exotic challenge that I'm doing, these YouTube series. That I bought this car from this older gentleman. Only has 111,000 miles, and it shows. Everything's still very well kept together. There's little scratches here and there. Some of the trims on the dashboard kind of unglued, but overall, for 35 years old, this car aged very well. Not design-wise, but quality-wise, and that is what Lexus is known for. Obviously, Toyota, the whole Toyota brand is built on quality, reliability aspect. And this Lexus, being the first Lexus ever made and launching the brand, they did such a fantastic job with this car. And along the way, embarrassing all of the European rivals like Mercedes, BMW, and Jaguar. What a beautiful car, what a beautiful story. And this V8, I'm keeping up, like I said, with the traffic, no problem. It is still very smooth. Yeah, obviously, I only got 250 horsepower. But again, back in 1990s, this was faster than BMW 7 Series. Absolutely crazy. And today, it feels like a relic, and it is a relic. And it's so cool. It's just from an iconic standpoint, what this car did to the automotive world in general is just so beautiful. And because of that respect, you just kind of have to be patient with this car, but not to the point where it's too slow, you can't keep up with the traffic. No, it's still very smooth, fast enough for what this car is and what era it's coming from. In the first year when the LS400 was launched, it sold over 42,000 units, and in the following year, in 1991, this car outsold the Mercedes S-Class and BMW 7 Series, and car critics absolutely went nuts. They couldn't believe this was happening. As a response, Mercedes decided to lower the prices on their S-Class 10%. Cadillac, the American luxury division of the GM, decided to purchase one of these and then took it apart and find out what made this car so special and tried to recreate it in more American way, but they couldn't because they didn't have enough resources apparently to build such a fine automobile. Much worse reaction came from BMW, accusing Lexus that they were selling the LS400s at a loss and not making profits on units sold. Everyone was freaking out. No one could believe that the company that was known for building 4-cylinder ugly fuel-efficient cars now was building the world's best luxury sedan. And if you want to find out the fate of this specific LS400, then you should definitely check out the 3K to Exotic series here.